Welcome back, everyone. Today's deep dive, well, it's a tough one. We're going to be talking about the death of U.S. Air Force Senior Airman Roger Fortson.
Yeah, it's a tragic case and one that raises some really important questions about policing and use of force in this country.
Definitely. And we're going to be looking at this story from a lot of different angles. We've got news reports, court documents, legal analyses, really trying to get a full picture of what happened.
Right, and what it means, both for Fortson and his family, but also for the broader conversation about police reform.
Absolutely. So
I
so the incident itself, this all took place on May 3rd, 2024. We had Deputy Eddie Duran, part of the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. He responds to a call about a possible domestic disturbance. Happens at an apartment complex in Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Right. And right off the bat, there's some confusion about this call, some discrepancy. It seems like it might have been directed to the wrong apartment.
Yeah, that's what the records seem to indicate. I mean, there were a number of calls made to a different unit, one that didn't even belong to Airman Fortson.
Right. So that immediately raises questions, right? Like about the accuracy of the initial dispatch, the circumstances that led the deputy to Fortson's door in the first place.
Exactly. Now, Roger Fortson, just to paint a picture of who he was 23 years old, active duty in the Air Force, a decorated combat veteran, no criminal history whatsoever. At the time of the incident, he was at home. He was on a video call with his girlfriend. Actually, he was playing video games.
Just a normal night, and that makes it all the more tragic to think that, he's just at home relaxing and this is what happens.
Yeah. It's hard to even imagine. And his girlfriend, who wants to remain anonymous, she actually described what happened over the phone
Right.
as this situation escalated.
Yeah, she said he was playing games, just hanging out. Then there's this banging on the door.
And Fortson, he couldn't see who it was, but the knocking kept getting louder and more insistent.
So naturally, he's concerned. He gets up to see what's going on.
He tells his girlfriend he's getting his gun, just in case. And it's important to note this was a legally owned firearm.
Right. He had a right to have it.
Now, we do have body camera footage from Deputy Duran. It shows him outside Fortson's apartment. He knocks. He announces sheriff's office a couple of times.
And Fortson, he opens the door, but he's got the gun in his right hand. It's pointed downwards, though. And his left hand is raised, palm open.
But it happens so fast. I mean, within seconds, Deputy Duran fires multiple shots, hits Fortson.
And the footage, it's hard to watch. It's graphic.
Sheriff's office, open the door! Sheriff's office, open the door! Step back. Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
He's over there.
Drop the gun!
No, have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move! Do not move! Stop moving! Stop moving! Hang on, man. We got an EMS coming for you. Don't move. Hey, you got move. We're good. We're good. You got a gun since you opened that door. I haven't even got inside the building yet. Let's go. Let's go. Sheriff's office, everybody else, make the front stop! Watch the door to the right, go to the left. Drop it. On the ground, Yeah. Going over and pushing? No, yeah. home, she drinks. I have no few of us on here. Hey man, stay with us. Roll up with you. No, got it. No, he's got exit one. Exit one in the back. Okay, one. Go to the back. One, two. One, try to get up here. Shoulder side. Roll ready. 3 on the arm. Roll. Watch that. Got no exit. Related dispatch. Got 3 gunshot wounds. 1 exit. Man. I need more, man. He's shot up. 4. We have 3 gunshot wounds in the chest, 1 exit wound. 6. Okay, you got 6 gunshot wounds. Just keep going. Who's that from? Can we make sure you find someone? Hold on, let me look at my best. I'll have we got nothing. Here, come down to the get up. That's fine, but we'll just work out. See if you can get any other stuff. Just so we sit down, you know. Nothing? Pressure on that side will work, yes. You got it, man. Got it, man. I got it. Alright. You guys got this. Keep breathing. High pocket. Got it. Hold this. There's more directions in there. Get them out. Get high pressure. I'm going to do this side. And you don't roll. Okay, I can't hold pressure. I got you. I got you. Okay, I got it. Okay, hold it for a second.
And it sparked a lot of debate, a lot of controversy, because you can hear Fortson say, okay, on the video, after the deputy identifies himself and tells him to drop the weapon.
Right. So the question is, did Fortson have enough time to react, to comply with those commands?
That's a key question here, and one that investigators are going to have to grapple with.
Now, according to Fortson's girlfriend, who was listening to all of this over the phone, she said she heard other deputies arrive.
Right, and according to her, they allegedly started searching through Fortson's things. And one of the deputies, he realizes that he's in the military.
Tragically, though, despite being rushed to the hospital, Fortson, he died from his injuries.
Yeah, a young life, a life cut far too short.
And that's when the legal battle really begins, right? The sheriff's office, their initial stance was that the deputy, he was acting in self-defense.
Right. That was their first claim. But an internal investigation conducted by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, they actually came to a different conclusion.
Yeah. They found that the use of force in this case, it wasn't objectively reasonable.
Right. And because of that, because of their findings, Deputy Duran was terminated from his job. This was on May 31st, 2024.
But the story doesn't end there. 3 months later, in August, manslaughter charges were filed against Duran.
Manslaughter with a firearm. That's a serious charge. It carries a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison.
And the judge initially denied bail, but later set it at $100,000.
Yeah.
But there are restrictions on Duran's movement. He can't possess firearms. It's a complicated case. There are a lot of legal complexities here.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that this is still ongoing. We don't have all the answers yet.
Right. But it raises a lot of questions about accountability.
Yeah.
About how we ensure that law enforcement is held responsible when things go wrong.
And how we can prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening again in the future.
And Fortson's mother, she's spoken out. She said that while these charges are a step towards justice, they don't really offer her any real peace.
How could they? I mean,
Yeah.
she lost her son. No parent should have to go through something like this. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And
Yeah.
in this case, I mean, it highlights a much larger problem, right? The issue of police violence, particularly against Black men in America. It's something that we can't ignore.
Absolutely. And this is where the role of the legal system becomes really crucial.
Right. I mean, it's not just about seeking justice for individuals. It's about using the law to push for broader change, for real reform within law enforcement.
Exactly. Lawsuits can be a powerful tool for accountability. They can force departments to take a hard look at their policies, their training. They can help to create real deterrence to prevent these kinds of things from happening again.
And they can also bring these issues to light, make the public aware of the problems that exist.
Right. I mean, sometimes it takes a high-profile case, a lawsuit that really gets people's attention to spark a national conversation about these issues.
And that's what we need. We need to be talking about this. We need to be demanding better from our law enforcement agencies. We need to be holding them accountable.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember the human cost of all this. I mean, this isn't just about statistics. It's about people like Roger Fortson.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the legal arguments, the political debates, but we have to remember that Roger Fortson was a person. He was a son, a brother, a friend.
He served his country. He had a life, dreams, aspirations.
He loved video games. He was close to his family. I mean, this was a life that was tragically cut short.
And it's a reminder that we have a lot of work to do. We have to do better. We can't keep letting these things happen.
We can't. We have to demand justice. We have to demand change.
We do, for Roger Fortson and for all the others who have been victims of police violence.
Absolutely.
We have to keep fighting for a better future, a future where these kinds of tragedies are no longer acceptable.
That's right. We owe it to Roger Fortson and to ourselves to make sure that his death wasn't in vain.
It wasn't.
We have to keep pushing for accountability, for transparency, for real change.
We do.
And that's what we're going to keep doing here. We're going to keep talking about these issues. We're going to keep shining light on them.
And we're going to keep pushing for justice.
Absolutely.
And when Crump talks about this tragedy being preventable, it really resonates. Because you start to think about the deputy's training. Was he properly trained in de-escalation? Did he really assess the situation before resorting to lethal force? And then there's the question of implicit bias. Could that have played a role? These are all things that need to be carefully examined.
It kind of brings us back to this fundamental question. What is the role of law enforcement? I mean, are they there to protect and serve everyone, or are they, as some people argue, too quick to use force, especially when it comes to Black men?
It's such a complex question, and there are no easy answers. But what we do know is that incidents like this one, they really damage public trust in the police,
right,
especially in communities of color, and that has consequences.
Yeah, it creates this sense of fear, of resentment, this feeling that the system is stacked against them.
Right, and when people don't trust the police, they're less likely to cooperate. And that can actually make communities less safe.
It's this awful cycle.
Exactly. And it underscores the desperate need for real police reform. We need measures that build trust, that ensure accountability, that prioritize de-escalation and community policing.
For sure. Let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about Roger Fortson, the person, not just the victim, but the man behind the headlines. Mm-hmm. What can we learn about him from the sources we have?
It's so important to remember that he was more than just a statistic, a news story. This was a young man with hopes, with dreams. People loved him. He's been described as kind, gentle, a dedicated airman, a beloved son and brother.
And he served his country with honor. He enlisted in the Air Force back in 2019. And just last year, in 2023, he earned the Air Medal with a combat device for his service in a special operations mission in Syria. I mean, that's incredible.
It really speaks to his courage, his commitment.
Yeah. And to have his life cut short like this in his own home by someone who was supposed to be protecting him, it's just devastating.
It is. And it reminds us of the real human cost of these events.
His family has been so strong throughout all of this. They've spoken out. They're demanding justice, accountability. But they've also shared stories about Roger, about who he was as a person.
And that's what we need to hold on to. That's what we need to remember. As we talk about these complex, these difficult issues, we can't lose sight of the fact that a life was lost, a family was shattered, and a community is grieving.
Right. And it makes these conversations so important. We need to be talking about this. We need to be demanding better from our systems, from law enforcement, from ourselves.
We need to think about what kind of world we want to live in. A world where a young man like Roger Fortson can feel safe in his own home, where he's not seen as a threat because of the color of his skin. A world where law enforcement is truly committed to protecting everyone.
It's a long road ahead, but cases like this, they remind us why this fight is so important. The fight for justice, for equality, for real change.
And as we move forward, it's crucial that we listen to those who have been impacted by these tragedies, that we learn from their experiences, and that we work together to build a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely. Now, we'll be sure to post links to all the sources we've used for this deep dive on our website. We encourage everyone to take a look, to learn more about these issues.
Because ultimately, it's through understanding, through dialogue, through action, that we can create real and lasting change.
And it makes you think about the role of technology in these events.
Right. In the past, a lot of these incidents, they happened behind closed doors. All we had were the accounts of those involved. But now, with everyone having smartphones, social media, we're seeing more and more of these encounters being recorded, being shared.
And that video footage, it can be powerful evidence. It can challenge the official narrative. It can hold law enforcement accountable.
Think about the George Floyd case. That video, it sparked a global movement. It led to protests, to demands for justice, to the officer being convicted.
But it's not just about accountability. It's also about seeing the human cost of these tragedies. I mean, in a way that we couldn't before.
Right. I mean, we see the fear, the pain. You know, it forces us to confront this reality of police violence in a way that just reading a news report, you know, it doesn't do that.
It makes it much harder to look away, to pretend it's not happening.
Exactly. We see these victims as human beings, as sons, as daughters, as people with lives, with families who love them, not just statistics.
Right. And it makes it that much harder to dismiss their deaths as just isolated incidents.
Yeah.
Or to justify the use of force that led to them.
Absolutely. So technology, it can be a tool for change, but it also brings a whole new set of challenges.
Definitely. I mean, we have to be aware of the potential for re-traumatizing people, especially those who are, directly impacted by these events.
And there are ethical considerations, too, about how we share this kind of graphic content. We need to be responsible. We need to protect people's privacy.
And maybe most importantly, we have to be careful not to become desensitized to it, to the violence.
We can't let it become, just something we see on our screens every day.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Roger Fortson case, what are some of the key takeaways that our listeners should be thinking about?
Well, I think first and foremost, it highlights the need for thorough and transparent investigations whenever there's a fatality involving law enforcement. There are a lot of questions about the procedures, the use of force, in this particular case.
Yeah. And it also underscores the role of the legal system in holding individuals and systems accountable. Lawsuits, they can be a way to get justice, but they can also be a real catalyst for change.
Exactly. And it forces us to confront this issue of police violence, especially against Black men in America.
Right. This is not an isolated incident. It's part of a much larger problem.
A systemic problem.
Exactly. And we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to address it? What can we do as individuals, as a society, to demand better from our law enforcement agencies, from our elected officials?
It's a complex issue, no doubt. It's been going on for a long time. But we can't just stand by and do nothing. The stakes are too high.
Roger Fortson, he deserved better. And his death, like so many others, it has to be a call to action.
We have to demand justice. We have to demand change. We cannot accept this as the norm.
In a world where we have technology that allows us to see these events, to witness them in such detail, we have a responsibility. We can't look away.
We have to act.
If you're interested in learning more about this case, you can find links to all of the source material we use for this episode on our website. Please take a look.
Stay informed, engage in these conversations, and most importantly, take action.
Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important journey. We urge you to keep the conversation going. Demand justice, demand change, and never forget Roger Fortson.
Never forget.